Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, happy Monday. We got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, let's talk about President Biden's proposed budget. I'm asking the question, is it good for Black America? We'll share with you some of the remarks from the NAACP and the Movement for Black Lives, also getting the expertise from Dr. Jason Nichols. Also, let's talk about Colin Kaepernick. He did an interview with CBS, and he's still talking about going back to the NFL. Should he still be trying to go back into the NFL? We'll talk about what he had to say. Later on, we got our brand new segment, Reclaim Your Wellness, with Dr. Bridget Williams, MD. We're going to talk about everything from mental health to the infant mortality rate among Black women. And I got some latest stuff around the Oscars. We got a lot to cover, folks, so stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Again, folks, happy Monday. Thank you for tuning in to us this week. Let's jump right into the conversations. We got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, if you haven't heard, President Biden has put forth to Congress his proposed budget on what he thinks that are some of the top priorities in the country. And this budget has gotten everyone talking, folks, from folks in the institutional level all the way down to the grassroots. And President Biden is trying to change the game and trying to turn a page and providing a little bit more resources to dealing with the issues of inequality, dealing with issues of racial justice, and so much more. So we're asking the question today, is his budget good for Black America when you start looking at it? And let me just share with you just a little bit of what the president is trying to do with this budget, because his budget this year is going into a different direction. According to the reports, instead of proposing his budget has went the opposite direction of what the expectation was. Instead, he's proposing a 7% increase over current non-defense spending levels, in addition to tax increases. One thing that his budget is emphasizing is that that there should be even higher taxes for the wealthy. And so, of course, the Republicans are pushing back on that. But he's also spending a great amount of money on other programs outside of defense, outside of even law enforcement, putting more money into social programs. And many people are saying that these are the things that really need to be accounted for. A program such that speaks to infrastructure, housing, social services, unemployment, and so much more. Let's go check in now with Dr. Jason Nichols, who is the lecturer from the African American Studies Department at the University of Maryland, here to give us his insight on President Biden's proposed budget, and more importantly, answering the question, is it good for Black America? Doc, good to talk to you, brother. How you feeling, my brother?
I'm feeling well. I'm feeling good, brother. How you?
Oh, I'm good, man. It's Monday. You know, hanging out with you a little bit.
No doubt.
Let's talk about this, bro. This budget here. I'm trying to pull up these numbers here because one of these numbers is something I think is pivotal. He's putting a lot. And first and foremost, this is a $6.8 trillion budget. This is a huge budget that the president has put forth to Congress. Already it's gotten some pushback, naturally. But one of the big things is that it slashes, according to the budget, that this is $3 trillion in deficit slashing policies, a deficit slashing that would happen over a 10-year period, over a decade. And so when we have these conversations, first and foremost, about the importance of the budget, we have to acknowledge the fact that this is over a long, protracted period of time, that if you want to know what the priorities of any administration is, look at its budget And if you want to know the impact of what an administration is, look at its budget. Talk to us about the significance of that first.
Well, I think, again, you stated it perfectly. If you want to know where they're putting their money and where their actions and their policies are going to follow, you look at the budget. And I don't think that this budget is going to go very far in Congress when you have a Republican-controlled Congress, and they're even playing with total economic meltdown with the debt ceiling. So they're willing to play with fire. They're not going to approve any budget that's positive for Black folks or for anyone else for that matter. They're looking for fiscal austerity, which we know doesn't really work. I will say, this does come with tax increases, and there are middle-class people that are going to feel some of this. I know they say they're only going to tax people making over $400,000. Whether you're middle class or a family making $400,000, that's up for debate depending on where you live. I would say out there in California, you're probably upper middle class. You're not.
Yeah, you're still doing something out here, Doc.
You're doing all right. Don't get me wrong. You're doing all right anywhere.
You're doing all right,
but you're not balling out of control. No. If you're in San Francisco and you have a family of 5, you make
no.
Yeah. So, we could talk about that, but I think middle class people are going to get hit, particularly in the stock market. I know one of the things that he wants to do is tax capital gains more heavily. But the thing is, I still think that's important. And I'm somebody who's pretty well invested in the stock market. But I still think that that's really, really important, and I'm willing to pay those taxes, because with capital gains taxes, that's the only way that we can legally tax the super wealthy. We have to think about people like Elon Musk when he sells Tesla stock in order to buy Twitter. He should have to pay taxes on that because he doesn't make a traditional income. So you can't tax his income the same way. He's going to pay nothing because what does he even get a salary? I don't think he does.
No, I don't think he does either.
Again, the only way to tax the super wealthy is to go after capital gains. You could try what, and I don't want to get too technical, but you could try what Elizabeth Warren talks about in taxing wealth. But I agree with the Republicans, having looked at it, that is unconstitutional. And you will have to change the Constitution. And you're not going to get that out of Republicans. You won't even get that out of some Democrats because they're super wealthy. So the only way to really do this is to tax capital gains and tax the upper middle class. And that's the only way that the wealthy are going to pay their fair share in order to secure things that the president has said are his priorities: Medicare, Social Security. And you got people saying, no, we just need to raise the age on Social Security. Now, I broke this down in a piece I wrote for Newsweek. So let's take Senator Kennedy out of Louisiana. And Louisiana is a state that has plenty of Black folks, right? They want to raise the Social Security age to 70. The average Black man in America lives to be 70.8 years old. So that means that you will pay into the Black men will be paying into the Social Security pot their entire working lives and not live long enough to actually benefit from it. I think that's unfair, personally.
Yeah. And Dr. Jason, that is totally unfair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally unfair. Like, you work all of your life, you give so much of your time to to the company or to the country in some way, shape, or form, and then you don't even reap the benefits until not even your golden years. It's almost like your decaying years. You know what I'm saying? You can't even reap the benefits from it. So you're right. You're absolutely right.
Right. So I'm really I think the Biden budget, I haven't gone through it, line item, but to me, it looks like his priorities in terms of finding ways to tax the wealthy, and finding ways to protect things that affect Black folks, Medicaid, Medicare. As a matter of fact, most of the black babies born in this country, the health care for those mothers comes from Medicaid. So not most. I have to go back and look at those statistics. But either way, a large portion. And so we need to protect those entitlements for the working class, making sure that people can get health care, making sure that they get it in their golden years and when they're delivering babies and throughout their lives. We need Medicaid expansion, which Republicans have gone up against. And there's ways to generate the revenue for all of that. But Republicans are more worried about their donors, than they are about the working class people in their states and in their districts.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I wanted to, and crew, I want y'all to check in and let me know what your thoughts are as we talk about President Biden's budget. Here's the thing, because this budget is so big, it's got so much stuff that's stuffed in it. And I know folks, when you often talk about budgets, when you're talking about government spending, people's eyes start to gloss over, right, Dr. Jason? Like, people just be like, yeah, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean, right? So how do people break this thing down? How do we look at this from a quote unquote layman's perspective to make sure that we understand where the president has put his emphasis? And then, we're going to take a quick pause and then I'm going to share some other stuff. But how do we do that?
I think we look at budgets are complicated, but where the money goes is simple. You know what I mean? So Where are they planning on spending our tax revenue? Where are they planning on spending our tax dollars? How are they planning on generating revenue? And if it's taxing working class people, then that's a problem. If it is sending it to things that make us a healthier, stronger, safer society, then I think it's a good thing. I think, of course, Republicans are going to fight against climate change and all that kind of stuff. I get that. I don't agree with it. I think that this is an important crisis, particularly for Black and brown communities. And I'm going to do a shameless plug and say, look at my interview or listen to my interview with Mustafa Santiago Ali, where he talks about, a green economy and where that could help Black communities and how climate change is affecting Black communities. But I would say, we need health care. That's one of the reasons why Black folks are dying so early. Why Black men aren't living past barely past 7.
True.
So these are where our priorities should be. We should see it as pro-Black policy. I'm not, going to go as far as to say Biden's, whatever, you ain't Black and none of that. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that where they put their money is where their priorities are, and we need to recognize what will disproportionately impact and improve the lives of Black folks.
Absolutely. We got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, folks, let's continue to talk about this President Biden's proposed budget and its impact on Black America. We'd love to get your questions, take your thoughts, and Diesel, I see what you got to say, sir. I'm going to definitely bring that up into the conversation. Folks, stay with us. We got a lot to cover as we check in with my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols, and you. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. An angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol. We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Folks, welcome back to the show. We have been talking to Dr. Jason Nichols, who is a lecturer from the African American Studies Department from the University of Maryland, as we've been talking about President Biden's proposed budget. Is it good for Black America? That's the big question. And I want to get back to my brother, Dr. Jason, and I want to hear from you, crew, to let me know your thoughts on this situation. You can hit us up. You can post your comments on the chat on YouTube, Facebook, as we're streaming on those platforms, as well as, of course, on Black Star Network and, of course, on Amazon News. Doc, let's go back into looking at this. So one of the big things saying that you said, and I just posed that question before the pause, saying, look, if you want to look where the priorities are for any administration, look at where they're spending the money. Because a lot of times these administrations have been spending money on things of defense. In most cases, cases like infrastructure, building the physical roads and the physical settings of the country in different parts of the country. Those have often been the two big things. But Diesel brought this point up. You know, when you look at how much money is being spent in Ukraine with the Ukraine-Russia war, that additional money, you're talking about billions of dollars that's being spent over there, right? How does that fit into the budget? Where does that fall? And should us as Americans, should us as constituents in this country, should we push back and say, hey, Mr. President, can you cut down on that? Where does that fit, bro?
So, that's a complicated question. I will say this. I mean, of course, I think it gave me a lot of pause when I saw Ukraine getting hundreds of billions of dollars in military aid. And then, estimates say that we could end homelessness in this country with $20 billion. Everywhere in the country. New York City, San Francisco, LA, Houston, we could end homelessness with just a $20 billion investment. So again, I see the argument. I do think that there is a danger in letting Russia go in and take one of the I think people don't realize how large Ukraine is. Ukraine is a really large country in Eastern Europe. Letting Russia encroach upon that territory, letting Russia empower itself, I think it is something that deserves attention from the United States and from the West, particularly.
Well, here's the problem with that, bro. Here's the problem with this, Doc. We, as the American people, we don't know what the interests are for the United States to even get involved in that war.
Yeah,
the government, and look, I'm not one who says, okay, well, we got to know every single government step. I'm not that guy, right? Because once you start to learn what the government is really doing in the name of the American people and in the name of democracy, you're going to start to it goes down like that Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole, right? But in a case like Ukraine, there really hasn't been a I know President Biden has done a number of messages, national messages, where he talked about the need to support Ukraine, but there still hasn't been enough information from my vantage point for us to really say, oh, this makes sense. Because to a lot of American people, and we talked about it on the show, I talked about it with you and other folks, Dr. Gerald Horn included, the American people are still not totally on board. If the president, if there was something to happen in Russia in the Russia-Ukraine conflict today, and it was such a dire situation that the president said, okay, we need boots on the ground from the American soldiers, I bet you probably more than half, a majority of Americans will be like, no, we're not going.
No. I would be like, hell no. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Could we, can we invest? First of all, we've invested about 5% of our military capability. Last I checked, 5% of our military capability in Ukraine. And we have destroyed over 50% of the military capability of Russia, which was considered basically the third power in the world, the third most powerful military in the world. And we've literally pretty much wiped it out to the point where they're having to empty their jails. You know what I mean? They're emptying their jails and prisons and saying, if you fight, we'll give you freedom. They are literally hiring mercenaries like the Wagner Group to go out and fight. They're conscripting people off the street. If you are a Russian citizen, a male Russian citizen, they're going to put an M4 in your hand. You're going to get 2 weeks of training, and they're going to put you in the field. And that's because of the strength of the American military and American military capability. We invest a lot of money in it for this reason, because we basically want to control the world financially and economically and militarily. We want to be able to say to Russia, to India, to China, look, you really don't want smoke, but boots on the ground doesn't really help. We saw boots on the ground in Afghanistan and we lost that war. You know what I mean? We saw boots on the ground in Iraq, and still, I guess, up to interpretation whether we won or lost that war. We saw boots on the ground in Vietnam. We haven't won a war since World War II. So when we put boots on the ground, so I think we ought to just do what we do, fund, how much funding I think could be debated. But helping the Ukrainians and making sure that Russia doesn't attack any NATO nations, because then we're obligated to actually fight. Making sure that we maintain that red line. I remember when Ukraine first popped off, people were saying, well, we need to establish a no-fly zone. I was like, you're out of your mind. Because to establish a no-fly zone, you have to establish air superiority. How do you establish air superiority? You have to fight. And we don't want to fight with, especially Russia. We don't need that fight. Can we let Ukraine, borrow, not borrow, but take some missiles and stuff like that? I tend to be more okay with that. But boots on the ground, is out of the question. I think Joe Biden realizes that. He'd be insane.
Right.
That would be the presidency. We just
no doubt.
We don't want to go into a war. We literally just ended a 20-year war.
You don't want that. He don't want that, bro. He's not
want that. He's not stupid.
Right. No, not at all. Let's talk about this this domestic affair. And I want to share what the NAACP president and CEO Derek Johnson, he released a statement last week talking about this budget. He said the Biden-Harris administration's proposed budget reflects many of our most and this is that's not it. We want to take that quote down for me, please, Kenny. That's from the Movement for Black Lives. We can get to that in a moment, bro. But this piece here, Mr. Johnson said the Biden-Harris administration's proposed budget reflects many of our most urgent needs, including health and well-being, environmental justice, education, housing, and long overdue policy solutions to close the racial wealth gap. So the NAACP is in support of this proposed budget, saying it is good for Black America because it deals with these long-standing systemic issues. Excuse me. On the flip side, now, Keenan, if we can post that quote, bro, thank you. The Movement for Black Lives put out this piece. President Biden and Attorney General Merrick Garland's plan puts the lives of millions of Black and brown people at risk by increasing the already looming and violent police presence in our community. Despite bloated police budgets across the country, crime continues to occur because the police do not keep us safe and they do not prevent nor stop crime. Pouring more money into the system of policing only threatens the very lives they're purported to protect. What's worse, using COVID-19 relief money to boost officer pay or fund oppressive police tactics when our communities are still struggling from the pandemic, it is immoral but not unsurprising. It is also a slap in the face to the millions of Black, brown, Asian, and LGBTQ plus people who voted this administration into office in a historic wave of support in hopes of shifting the material conditions of their families and their communities. And then it ends it, we shouldn't be surprised that our country is facing the same issues over and over again when what is put forward as solutions are the same racist, dysfunctional, and violent solutions. When we say defund and abolish the police, we mean exactly that. We need policies and solutions that center community and investments in housing, education, good jobs, and mental and physical health for all. I think it's absolutely interesting, Brother Jason, that you got two organizations. One is saying, yes, this is what the budget is doing. The other is saying, no, this is not what the budget is doing. And this is why I think it's interesting that Black America is in the condition that we're in, just because it's hard for us to see which page that we should be on. What's your take on that? We got a minute left before we take our next pause, but what's your take on this, on seeing the disparity in both of these statements from Movement for Black Lives and the NAACP?
I think there's a generational gap there. I think, one place where I disagree with the Movement for Black Lives is I think we should pay cops more. I think I've said that on this show. I believe that cops should be paid more because I can expect more from you and I can expect higher qualifications if I'm giving you a good salary. So nurses, teachers, and cops, I'm with paying them more. That at the same time, I think we can still move funding into more community-centered ideas and policies. And to make it a zero-sum game, I think is a mistake on the part of the Movement for Black Lives. I think the NAACP, they're almost a little too in the pocket of the Biden administration and not recognizing that, look, this budget isn't perfect, and I think there's also a philosophical difference between people who believe in community policing, which means, you're going to have cops more police because they're not going to be riding around in cruisers and not getting to know the community. They're going to be out walking beats and getting to know the old lady on the corner, getting to know the person that's hanging out the window, getting to know the kids in the community. And then there are people who believe that we should have fewer police altogether. I'll tell you, when I talk to a lot of older Black folk, they want some police presence. You know what I mean?
Hey, look. Until we come up with a legitimate alternative, we gotta deal with the system. And we could do two things at one time, at the same time. We could walk and chew gum at the same time. we can build a community policing infrastructure in our communities, right? From various organizations, of course, from everybody from the nation to the church to everybody, right? And at the same time, still do some reform, because while we're building our capacity, police departments currently got the capacity to handle the thousands and millions of people that are in most of these, millions of Black people that are in these cities. We can do two things at the same time. We just got to have a plan to do it. I gotta take a quick pause, Doc. When we come forward, we're going to switch gears a little bit from the budget. Let's talk about Colin Kaepernick as we talk about the policing issues. He did a CBS interview. We'll share with you a quick excerpt from that interview, but he's still putting it out there that he still wants to play in the NFL, even though he's doing all these other great things for the community. What do you think, folks? Should he get off of the NFL and just kind of move forward, or should he stay with where he is? We'll have that conversation up next here on The Culture, here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been checking in with my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols, talking about everything from
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Welcome back to the show. We've been talking to Dr. Jason Nichols, and we wanted to switch gears from talking about the president's budget to talk about Colin Kaepernick and his new CBS interview
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair. Take your seat.
All right, let's do it.
The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking to Dr. Jason Nichols from the University of Maryland, and I wanted to get the doc's take on this situation with Colin Kaepernick. And let's bring Doc back into the frame. Hey, Doc, your man Colin Kaepernick, our guy who took a knee some time ago, it's like, what, 6 years ago? How long was it now?
Yeah, it's...
I'm going to say 2018. Am I wrong on that?
No, I think you might be right. It's like 2017, something like that.
It might be. It might be. Yeah. So he continues to put it out there that he wants to continue to play in the NFL. And here's why. He just did a recent interview with CBS News where he sat down with them to talk about his new book, Change the Game, a book about talking about how he grew into his understanding of self-awareness during his teenage years, and he was talking about that. But then the conversation about the NFL came up where the MVP said, look, I'm still training 5-6 days a week. I'm still ready. But here's the thing. They got a new documentary that he's going to be putting out with Spike Lee, And he hasn't revealed, and this won't be until the documentary, he said, but he said he kind of teased that why he decided not to approach the that arranged what was that? The arranged practice that the NFL set up back in 2019.
Yeah.
But here's my thing on this, Doc. I love the brother. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Just let it go.
Yeah.
Just let it go.
Over. It's over. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Look, just let it go.
Yeah. No, I mean,
you legitimately have great quarterbacks, i.e. Lamar Jackson, who's still trying to figure out his situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, but then you have possibly bringing Colin Kaepernick back into the mix. I think part of me is like, Colin, you've done your work in the NFL. You're doing a phenomenal job on social activism, social justice in those spaces, right? I don't think you should worry about going back into the NFL at this point. Only if, here's my suggestion, Doc, and you tell me this if I'm crazy. I think he should only go back into the NFL if he plans to sit down with them and have a different conversation and say, look, let me work with Jay-Z. Your Inspire Change initiative needs some upgrade. Let me create a space for future players, current and future players, to express themselves politically without retribution or consequences from owners and teams and all of that stuff. Let me. I don't want to come in on that end versus trying to be a player. I think his days of being a player are over in the NFL.
It's over.
If he wants to make the change, bring that same momentum, bring that same energy, and do it on the front end. Like I said, you can work with Jay, you can work with other people and say, look, we're going to create a real legitimate outlet for players to express themselves. That's the only way I can see him working with the NFL at this point, bro.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, one of the things, in media, I can tell you, if you sue one of the networks, you'll never work at that network or any other network for that matter.
Never again.
Yeah, they steer clear of you. And Colin Kaepernick sued them. He took the payout. They're not going to bring him back. Number one, he's been away from the game so long. You got all these young college studs coming up. You got guys who are playing in the XFL and the USFL who want a shot. I just don't think Colin Kaepernick is going to get an opportunity. Not only whether he can play or not, whether he's injury-free or not. He's been away from the game for a really long time. But one thing I will say is, taking another athlete, quarterback, who is a very different person with a very different personality. But I think about RG3, right? RG3 was number one pick in the draft. Everybody thought he was going to be a great quarterback. It didn't pan out. Now he is calling games and doing analysis. And he's much better at that than he ever was at playing football. So to me, sometimes you learn your purpose. It's not what you thought it was, and I think Colin Kaepernick has a greater purpose, a grander purpose than, running a football or throwing a football. I think he has, a greater purpose in the world, a better lessons he can teach the world. I know he's passionate about football, and there's probably other ways that he can get back into, football. Whether it's he's a pretty reserved person, but he can do, media. There are other things that he could do that I think people would absolutely accept him and be excited about it. But the idea of him coming back and challenging for a position on an NFL team to be a quarterback, it's over. Let me
ask you this. I never understood this. Like you said, he got the payout, so he took him to court. He embarrassed the hell out of the league, right? Right. Mm-hmm. Essentially, like once he did it, he went through all of the scrutinizing. He went through all of the criticism. He went through all of that. And then a couple of years later, the league everybody started to say, oh, yeah, he was right, right? So he bashed the hell out of the league, right? I mean, he did all these things, and it's like, bro, why do you keep wanting to come back to the same situation that ostracized you, that made you? Why would you? That's the part I'm not understanding. Like, why is there still this desire to be a part of a system that you said is not good?
Well, I think part of it is he's trained his whole life to be a football player and to be an athlete, and he feels, he wakes up in the morning, he still feels strong. He can still throw the ball a mile. He's like, I can still do this. And he feels, I think, in terms of his career, like he left something on the plate. He didn't eat his food. He never won that Super Bowl. He didn't get a chance to live out his career. We saw Brady play for 75 years, and he's like, I want some food on the plate. I want to eat the rest of my food. I want my leftovers. And to prove that not only was he an activist, but a great player. I mean, when you think about some of the activists that we've had in sports, they've all been great athletes. There's always going to be that question mark around Colin Kaepernick. Was he great? Was it, we never saw it. So I think he still has that in his head. I mean, Muhammad Ali was great. When you go back to breaking the color barrier, people forget that he was the best player in baseball for about 3 seasons and was an MVP. In all of baseball. We often talk about Satchel Paige being better than him, or we talk about Josh Gibson being a better hitter than him. But when we look at it, he was literally the best player in baseball. So with all of the great things, of course, Jackie Robinson was, like I said, great. Roberto Clemente, great. All the people that we think of as activists were also great at their craft. There's always that question mark over Colin Kaepernick. And he's got the question mark, I'm sure. I didn't get to do what I could have done. And he wants that opportunity again. With all these new leagues popping up, if he wants to play football, he can play football.
I'm about to say,
would let him in. But the NFL, it's over.
Hey, I was literally thinking that, bro. Like, and with all of these new leagues, with all these opportunities, you can play football. Hell, you can even coach football if you decided that that's, your path. But I'm with you there. I think that at this point, and I'm saying we in terms of those who have supported Colin all the way from the beginning, at this point, we should just be like, all right, well, you had your run. I get it. You got some stuff left on the plate. You still feel like you got some gas in the tank. But at the end of the day, based upon how the relationship has gone between you and the league,
yeah, it's over.
It's not happening, sir.
Yeah. He's done. It's over. He could talk to the Rock. He could play in the XFL. He could play in the USFL.
Right.
And if he balls out there, then he has a strong argument like, I can still play, but
if he look, let me tell you, if he went to an alternative league, right, a smaller league, he balls out there, he would make the league. Everybody in grandmother would be going to the game. You know what I'm saying? It's like what Deion saying to the gun for Colorado, you know what I mean? Like,
Pull up a chair, take your seat to the Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, welcome back. Hey, Doc, I want to bring you back in as we close this thing out. These sound termites keep getting into the system, brother. But I agree with you. As you mentioned, Colin Kaepernick, brother, is I think his time in the NFL is done. I would agree with you. I think that for us, we need to just say thank you. Thank you for your service on the field. And we look forward to all of the great things that you bring to the conversation around social and racial justice in this country. So that's where I'm at right now with the quarterback, and we will see. But he got a documentary. He got a new book called Change the Game. He's doing so many other fantastic things. So, Colin, big shout out to you for continuing to put your message out there. And more importantly, you will never be forgotten in NFL history. Never will be forgotten. Doc, you got the final say. What you take?
Yeah, no, I think you took the words right out of my mouth. He will never be forgotten. He is a legendary figure. He'll still be a polarizing figure because we live in a polarizing time of social media. I think through time he will have more people on his side, but he will never be forgotten. And I think the NFL one day will make public amends, but they don't want him to play on the field. He's never going to play on the field in the NFL. barring, like we said, if he goes on and plays in one of these smaller leagues and just balls out of control, then perhaps, you got to give him a shot. You got to start, kick up that buzz. But right now he's yesterday's news. He's yesterday's paper as far as being a player. But what he did for social justice, what he did for that discussion can never be minimized. He is a legendary figure in the history of sports and activism.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Jason Nichols, is always a pleasure, brother, to connect with you. I love our conversations on Mondays, so I truly, truly appreciate it. Talk to him about your podcast real quick, Doc.
Yes. So we have a podcast called The Working Class Elites. We are dropping episodes all the time. Hopefully I'll see Farajii later on and
yes.
he'll get his sound right. And we can have a conversation and you'll be able to watch a little extra of the culture just in a different platform. So definitely check out The Working Class Elites anywhere podcasts are available.
That's my guy, Dr. Jason Nichols, who is a lecturer for the African American Studies Department from the University of Maryland. Always a pleasure to talk to my brother, Doc. Thank you so much, brother. And more importantly, thank you for being so good for the culture.
No doubt. Anytime, my brother.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to bring you another installment of our brand new segment, Reclaiming Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget Williams, MD. Stay tuned. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. All right, now time for our brand new segment, another installment of our segment called Reclaim Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget Williams, MD. Check it out. Dr. Bridget, good afternoon, sis. How you feeling today?
Great. How are you, Farajii?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for checking in. And I'm very, very excited about today's conversation. You got a couple of things on tap, right?
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you for having me today. We're really talking about some really important issues. And, we've had these conversations where the Black community and mental health is a really important thing for me, that we don't get the services that we need. We ignored the care that we should be getting. And so I want to talk about this new study that came out from the Centers for Disease Control that looked at people during 2018 to 2020. They did a study, and Black people visit the ER for mental health at the higher rates than anyone else. And this is really important. So what they found is that they took 1,000 emergency room visits, and basically Black adults were going to the ER twice as often for mental health as white adults. So looking at 1,000 visits, 97 of them were Black adults, 43 were white adults. And why this is important is because basically when they're getting in there, they're not necessarily getting the care that they need. And honestly, in the long range of things, it can even lead to death. So what we're looking at is Black adults have a higher rate of emergency department visits for all over mental health disorders, substance abuse, anxiety disorders, mood disorders, and schizophrenia. And when they get in there, they end up waiting at least an hour long than white patients. I have seen it myself being in the ER. I have had conversations with some of my white patients and being told how disturbed they have been sometimes when they see a waiting room full of people and the white patients were being seen while a waiting room of Black people still sat there. And I've gotten that from white Americans. Okay.
So is this, and let me just real quick on that, Doc, is this something that is, across the board? Is it relative to the states? Is it relative to the hospital systems, public versus private? How does those dynamics fit?
Absolutely. So this is a study that was looking just across the board between 2018 and 2020. And what they're finding is that during this time, there was simply a lack of proper care. Black Americans don't have the primary care services that they should be getting. And then a really important part of this is that there is a stigma when we talk about mental health, right? And there are cultural beliefs that still stay with us, that we believe we're strong, that we dismiss the idea of someone being crazy, and that we simply wait longer to receive care than white America does. And when you consider that when you go into the ER, they are not your psychiatrist. They're not a mental health organization. They simply put a Band-Aid on what's coming in. And many times you're more likely to be diagnosed with substance use or substance abuse than depression and anxiety and being treated for that. And so they put the Band-Aid on there, and this is no disrespect for our ER doctors, but it's simply the function that they play. So it's very important that you get proper care from the right places. And the fact of the matter is, there's a great distrust in our community when it comes to medical facilities and doctors and the services that we could be getting because of a long history of mistreatment, to be honest, right? At the same time, our behavioral health and mental health systems are swamped with, and we have limited resources. So when you're looking for your Black psychiatrist, even your family physician or your therapist, sometimes it takes a lot more work to find the person that is right for you.
Right.
And so why this is an issue in the long run is because what we end up doing, and I'm sure we all know someone that fits in this category, that we end up taking an opportunity where we have mental health issues, where there, disturbances, stress, anxiety, depression going on. And because we don't seek medical care, we end up falling into drug abuse, self-treatment, alcohol abuse, instead of really getting the help that we need to feel better.
Folks, I want y'all to join us in the conversations. I'm talking to Dr. Bridget, MD. Crew, I would love to hear what your take is about this epidemic of mental health and ER and the ER visits. Post your comments in our chat section of YouTube, Facebook. Of course, we're streaming live on Black Star Network and Amazon News. But Dr. Bridget, I mean, this is very disturbing. And again, this adds to the many challenges that we face in this country systemically. What are hospitals doing around this issue? Are they coming up with better measures on, getting patients registered, or when they come in through the door, is there a better process? What are hospitals doing to make sure that they can cut down on this time?
Absolutely. So I can't really say that there has been some dramatic push outside of a lot of hospitals are doing more diversity, equity, inclusion type training, so that the employees have a better understanding of how to approach and treat the patients that are coming in. But one of the reasons why I find this disturbing, because a lot of people say, so what? Why is it a problem going to the ER? But if you look at the Trump era, if you look at the COVID pandemic, the only racial group that had a decrease in suicide rates was white America. And so that I'm talking about 2018 to 2021, that the suicide rate for Black Americans increased by 19%. Increased. Hispanic Americans increased by 7%. While white Americans went down 3.9%. And suicide is a mental health issue.
Right.
So we have to do more. We have to change how we think about this. We have to pay more attention to each other if we're really going to make a difference and save each other. Save each other at this point. So my recommendation when we're looking at this is find your health tribe. Look at what your priorities are, and your mental health better be one of the top ones, without a doubt. If you don't have that, you don't have anything.
No, you don't have anything. And so when you say your health tribe, right? Because we're in the age right now, Dr. Bridget, you know it, I know it. Everybody is a mental health specialist. Everybody want to give you their take on how they are living their best, drama-free, carefree life, right? We go on social media and everybody's talking about, self-care, self-care Sundays and all of those things. And I feel like these are great ideas. These are great tips, taking a walk, go outside, read a book, exercise. I think these are all great. These are good stuff. But I don't think that it speaks to the very, very deep personal pain that many people who suffer from mental health issues really feel. You know what I mean? Like, or telling yourself that you are okay in those daily affirmations is not going to be enough.
Yeah.
And I think that it has been used as a bandage on a wound. When you talk about, okay, you need to professional, or if necessary, you might need to take some medication, there has to be some other stuff that has to be done, but it just can't be this kind of like, oh, okay, I'm depressed today. And we use certain terms and we throw it around, but as if it's like, oh, I just had a headache. Like, oh, I was just depressed today, but I'm better now. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to see, like, so how do we get through all of that type of chatter to get to a person who says, you know what, I seriously think I need some additional assistance. I need some professional help. They don't go to social media and thinking that's the balm to get them healed.
Absolutely. And let me say that sometimes social media is the problem, right? And there's a great amount of anxiety and depression just related to too much exposure to social media. You cannot take an affirmation and cure your anxiety and your depression in itself. It might be great and positive, but you need to do some serious self-check-in. I think we all had a huge wake-up call when Twitch ended up committing suicide. I think that was, something that hit a lot of us, because on the social media side of things, we see nothing. Right. And so we need to do that self-check-in. If you are feeling down, depressed, unable to be motivated, having sleep issues, anger issues, appetite issues, and this has been going on for more than 2 weeks consistently, or on a more moderate side for more than 3 months, then you need to seek help. If you're concerned about, well, what does talking to someone mean? If you're seeing a good therapist, it is not about sitting and sharing your talks. It's not the same thing as talking to your best friend or your girlfriend or what have you. When you're talking about quality therapy, you're talking about changing the narrative and changing how you're thinking so that you can get out of the situation that you're in. And as much as sometimes we want to avoid pharmaceuticals, sometimes pharmaceuticals is what might help you the most. And don't allow the negativity or the downside of this or your impressions of what mental health means stop you from getting proper care. All you can do is try. So yes, everybody's a life coach, right? Because everyone's got a little life. But a life coach alone, does not necessarily take care of that. And let me say that we do better when we are taken care by our own. And this kind of leads into that other piece there, that even talking about infants, Black babies die at 3 times the rate of white newborns. When Black doctors are involved, the mortality rate cuts in half. We do better when we take care of ourselves. And so I guess if you're talking about my medical recommendation, see your Black therapist, your Black doctor, your Black psychiatrist, find them, support them, encourage people into the health field. I think we've really, 40% of people are looking for treatment outside of traditional medicine. But the fact of the matter is sometimes that traditional medicine practitioner is who you need. Go to your nurse practitioners. A lot of people don't want to see, they work harder than anybody else I know. Get the help you need and stop putting Band-Aids on it and think it'll just go away, because it can kill you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Bridget Williams, MD, as she continues to give us some insightful and very, very important information on how we can reclaim our wellness. Folks, stay with us. More conversations with her and, of course, with you, Lana. I see you. We'd love to share your comment with our watchers and so many more of you. So stay tuned. We got a lot to talk about here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We have been talking to our sister, Dr. Bridget Williams, ND, for her new segment, Reclaim Your Wellness. Another installment is happening at this point. Dr. Bridget, I want to bring you back into the frame as you talk to us about mental health and, more importantly, how ERs have not been accommodating to Black patients coming in through their doors to address this very, very big issue in our community. And you brought up the cases around suicide. Then you also talked to us about the situation of the infant mortality rate among Black women, higher than any other group of women in this country. And so when we're talking about reclaiming our wellness, it really is a multi-pronged approach. It's not just about what an individual chooses to do or not to do. Mm-hmm. It's also about what the hospital and the healthcare system of this country chooses to do and not to do. It is also about what the community, what we advocate for, right? What we say is good and what's not good. So, and that helps to create the culture around these conversations. You know, so many people are checking in. My crew members are saying, look, when we look at mental health, for example, Lana said, she said, I know several Black people who have committed suicide. We have never taken our lives at rates like today. We talked about Twitch. We talked about other Black folks, prominent Black folks who in all metrics have achieved some high level of success, but still felt like they were unfulfilled, still felt like taking their lives was the best option to deal with whatever issues that they had. And so I think the conversation has to be more than just this trendy space that we find this conversation in. You know, people say, you know, we throw around different words, mental health, we throw around depression, we throw around anxiety, we throw around self-care. And it's like, no, man, this stuff is really affecting us, Doc. Yeah. Absolutely. This stuff is really affecting us. Now, if we go really deep and get into this point that you made about the infant mortality rate, I think that part of the reason, and I could be way wrong on this, but I think that part of the reason that women are losing babies is because of the great amount of stress that is placed on Black women in particular. Mm-hmm. From everything from housing to money to family to relationships and all of that. That plays a huge role on a woman's body when she's carrying a child. And if she is not consuming the right information, she's not eating the right food, if she's not living in a very life-preserving environment, she is not the chances of the child going through this part of the process, it gets slim and slim. Yeah. And I mean, and I'm seeing, Doc, it very quickly.
No, and the fact of the matter is that.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Doc.
No, you're fine. When you're talking about poverty, if you're talking about stress,
right.
Poverty itself is a factor into mental illness. 31% of individuals living in poverty deal with depression, versus half of that, 15.8% of people that are not living in poverty, right? And basically, anytime you're dealing with tremendous stress on your mental, on your body, it's going to have an effect, obviously, on the hormones that are produced during your pregnancy. And so not only is it affecting you, affecting whether you're able to carry this child, but then those hormones have an effect on the child itself. And so all of that needs to be taken into consideration. We need what I'm hoping with Reclaim Your Wellness is that we have conversations that change the narrative, that shift the mindset of how we think about our health and how we approach the health community, how we look at mental health. This is something that we're going to be talking about because way too often do we dismiss the crazy cousin. Wait, and everyone's got that person. I remember, you know that I'm a cannabinoid specialist. One of my best friends' older cousin smoked all the time. And I literally thought, and she was a wild child. And I thought, it's that cannabis. It's that weed. That's what makes her act like that. Scared everything out of me. It wasn't until going to medical school, learning about cannabis, one day I called my friend. And I was like, I think your cousin had bipolar disorder. She was diagnosed into her 40s. Here was a teenage girl self-medicating all of her life until she got into her 40s and then realized that what she was doing was actually dealing with bipolar disorder. This is what happens too often. We have young people that are unsure of how they're interpreting the world, unsure about the feelings that they're having, and then they self-medicate with alcohol, drugs, cannabis, whatever it may be. When we need to let mental health be an open conversation in our Black homes, with our parents, with our grandparents, and not be ashamed of it, but approach this so that we have a vulnerability being Black in America that we cover up. We're always talking about the strong Black man, the strong Black woman. People are tired of being strong. We need to put our resources into being helped. And no better way of being helped is being helped by people that look like us.
Lana also said, Doc, that you would be a great Black chief of medicine for Black people. She thinks you're really good, Doc.
Give me the come on.
So big shout out to Lana. Corinna checked in and said, we don't pay enough attention to each other, and social media has made it 1,000 times worse. We are confident in the depiction of a curated space to tell us how a person should feel.
Absolutely. Yeah. People need to seriously take social media breaks, if use it at all. The fact that it is so first of all, just the smartphone itself, we will realize over the years that the detriment that it has had on our young people and as a cultural worldwide. Okay. This constant ability to be contacted, to be plugged in, to see these perfect lives the way that they appear. And it's not the way it is. Okay. All of it is well constructed. And so, but that leads people into stress, anxiety, and feeling like they need to keep up. We didn't grow up in that situation necessarily. What people were doing was in their own homes, but now it is for everyone to see, and people curate ideas that for some of us, we take it in and it causes depression and less than and anxiety and stress that we don't need in this world. Turn it off, get rid of it. Have your hour for today. You're not missing anything. If there's other ways you can actually have a phone conversation.
Right, but I don't think it's about missing anything, because I think most of us know if you're on social media, you know that nothing is really jumping off like that, every 30 minutes. I think it's gotten just be part of our habit, right? I remember reading some statistics around this, and they said that, within the course of an hour, we look at our phones over like 300-400 times.
Absolutely.
Within a course of an hour. So I think it's more now, it's just so ingrained in our habit that we, it's like the first moment we can take to breathe, we breathe it on social media. It's like, I've taken a little break. Let me see what's going on Instagram. You know what I mean? And it's like natural. It's like this habit now.
Yeah, but it's rewiring our brains, because now we're used to these very quick 30-second information. It pulls down our ability to sit through an hour class. How when you're used to the screen flipping every 30 seconds or less, very quickly, right? So if you notice, it happens so quickly that you have to watch it a couple times to get the full thing and understand it. It is rewiring our brains. Children should have breaks and limited exposure. Adults need to have breaks and limited exposure, because it's not good for anybody. Okay.
Absolutely.
So absolutely. And so what I suggest is do real person interaction, whether it is getting in a real conversation. There's nothing wrong with FaceTiming or what have you in this day and age. But to be willing to have real conversations and be vulnerable enough to share how you actually are feeling and checking in on somebody else legitimately. And have a pact that you can share how you are really feeling with me with no judgment. I'm not going to just tell you it's going to be okay. I'm really going to hear you. People need to have a safe zone. If you ask me, you can.
I'm asking you, Doc. Okay, yes, ma'am.
The fact of the matter is, if you're Black in America, you have PTSD. You have some mild, heavy, some level of severe to mild form of PTSD, because it is hard to grow up in this culture in the US without having some sense of trauma around the fact of how the world experiences your Blackness. And
I gotta stop you. I want to put you on pause right there. And there's no way in the world that I gotta let. Look, we gotta take a quick pause. I can't let you go.
Okay.
I can't let you go right now.
All right.
Dr. Bridget, I can't let you go, because that now you're changing the game. You're changing the whole conversation.
Yes.
If we're all suffering from some form of PTSD, mild to major, then we got to have a serious conversation. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, more with Dr. Bridget, as we're talking about reclaiming your wellness here on The Culture. Stay with us. It's The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been talking about reclaiming your wellness with Dr. Bridget Williams, MD. And Dr. Williams, Dr. Bridget just dropped a bomb. This wasn't even on the agenda, folks. You said this wasn't even on the agenda. Dr. Bridget, you said that if you're Black in America, that we all, you didn't say some, you said we all suffer from PTSD from mild to major or severe.
And I do think that is, and I do say all because that's my opinion. If you look at research, we Black people have the highest prevalence of PTSD in America. We are PTSD, we're 8.7%, where everyone else is falling below that. And so I think that is, I say that a little tongue in cheek, but just asking me and my medical opinion, I don't know how we cannot. And so in simply growing up, and I don't even have to go through the details, that if you are experiencing American culture and you're growing up Black in American culture, you're going to have some experiences that can lead to whether mild to more severe PTSD, depending on your experiences, right? And we have similar experiences. We don't have all the same experiences, but we do have some things obviously in common.
Wow. Now here's another point that my guy Willie Frazier brought up. I don't know if you saw this on social media. I did, and I thought this was interesting. I actually put it out on my Twitter. Willie, you brought this question up. You said there was a moment this weekend when a Black female therapist said she wasn't going to treat Black males because of questions the potential patients had about her experience. She was getting, and I saw this where this sister was saying, look, I'm no longer going to treat Black men. She said, because Black men have been scrutinizing her and really questioning her experience and her ability to do her job before they decide that they want to, get her services as a therapist. And she was pushing back on that. So Willie asked this question, is this common and are males difficult? Did you see this on social media, Doc?
No, I did not. I have a dozen questions around that because I think just in my own medical practice and over the years, I've had that experience across the board, right? And I do think if you're in the healthcare field, it's not easy being a woman. It's not easy being a Black woman in the healthcare field because we are definitely, Black women are not the most cared for group. And, we have a lot of statistics that puts us at the bottom as far as being protected and cared for and seen as intelligent, even though we probably have the highest college and higher education numbers in this country. And so I think quite often we are asked, how do you measure up? But I've had that happen with, white women, white men, Black men. I mean, there's a moment of trying to scrutinize you. And for whatever reason, she's seeing this with one particular group. My thing is when you're seeing abnormal behavior from a group, either it's a cultural aspect or there is a issue with that individual themselves, meaning do they have some trauma that has led them to those questions? So obviously I haven't seen the report and there's probably a lot more to this than what we are aware.
I gotta see this tweet. I gotta see this tweet of this sister.
I'm sorry.
I was just saying, I gotta send you the tweet of the therapist who made this because it's fascinating. And I saw it and I was like, okay, this is very interesting. But I do know that some Black men and some men in general really do have a problem with getting any type of guidance. And I also, I question that because I'm thinking of like, well, what about your mother? Like she's your first therapist. Mm-hmm. She's your first, healthcare worker. So would you question your mother's ability? Like I question any man who has a problem getting any type of guidance, any type of truth, any type of anything from a woman because she's based on a woman. I'm like, well, what kind of relationship do you have with your mother? Mm-hmm. It's very interesting, but I do recognize to your point that you made earlier, Doc, that we got PTSD and we got some serious issues between the sexes, right? Which creates barriers for us to build and to connect with one another in a healthy way. And of course, that just permeates through building families, building communities, having a solid foundation for the next generation of children. I mean, it creates a domino effect.
It does. Like we definitely struggle. And I definitely think Black men in particular will struggle with being vulnerable. And to be honest, being with any sort of therapist whatsoever puts you in a place of great vulnerability. And if that is something that you're uncomfortable with, if you have not been taught to be comfortable in your own skin and with your emotions, seeing a therapist can be an incredibly uncomfortable situation. And if anything, what I'm hearing from the little that I know from this tweet is that if someone is coming in and they're not really comfortable with the idea of seeing a therapist in the first place, you put on the defense mechanism, and now I point the finger back at you to make you uncomfortable. And so I hate the fact that it's pointing the finger at Black men. What we should be pointing the finger at is vulnerability, a lack of being able to control your emotions in an appropriate way. And this is not particularly a Black man problem. I think the same thing could happen with Black women or white women. Anyone that has trouble struggling with emotion and they've had issues or trauma, I mean, why are they seeing the therapist? There's probably some issues that got them there, right?
Right.
And so if that was the way to, and I cannot speak on her experience, that would lead her to that, coming to that conclusion. But clearly, instead of working through it in some way, because in seeing this is someone that needs a lot more help, let me work this through with them. I understand sometimes you have to cut that line and create the boundary, and it's time to move on. But there is a reason why someone behaves that way. And I think as a community, we need to be able to find a way to become comfortable with vulnerability. We're not allowed to be vulnerable in this country.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Man, oh man, I'm so happy that we got this new segment with you, Doc. And I know some of our crew members have already expressed that they're happy to have this type of connection with you. So again, we appreciate it. Reclaim Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget, MD. Doc, how can people get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So if you want to submit a question or a topic, definitely send me an email at info@drbridgetmd.com. And remember, this is Colon Cancer Awareness Month. African Americans are 20 times more likely to get colon cancer and 40% more likely to die. So get your colonoscopy, and I'll see you next week.
There it is right there, Dr. Bridget Williams, MD. Make sure y'all check her out every Monday here on The Culture for Reclaim Your Wellness, where she can talk to us about some of the pressing medical issues that we need to be informed of and answer your questions about things. And definitely check her out on her social media and her website. Dr. Bridget, thank you for being so good for the culture.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about the Oscars. We'll come back. All right, stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Before we roll out, Got to talk about the Oscars just for a quick moment. If you hadn't had a chance to watch the 95th Oscar presentation last night, there were some big moments. And of course, there were some big snubs. Yes, yes, yes. All right, let me just say this. First and foremost, it seems to be a trend where now if you host an award show, you can go on stage and just blast them for what they're not doing. This is what Jimmy Kimmel did last night as he hosted the Oscars presentation, just talking about everything from the slap of last year to talk about how now the Oscars has a crisis team in case there are moments of violence. Yeah. And this is all coming from a white comedian. So it will be interesting to see how that message comes across to the media. So Jimmy Kimmel definitely put the Oscars on blast last night. Another one of the big moments is one of our sisters, Sister Ruth Carter, who is the phenomenal costume designer for Black Panther. She has won her second Oscar yesterday for her work for Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. And she took home the big one yesterday, and rightfully so. If you saw Black Panther, you know that Ruth Carter put in extra work. There's a fantastic documentary that she's included in on Disney Plus, where she talks about how she decided to go, once they decided to take this to the conversation to Mexico, and including that part of including those people into the story, how she had to do the research and how she incorporated all of the history to bring that character, the costumes of those characters to life. So it's a fascinating piece around the making of Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. But big shout out to Sister Ruth Carter once again, bringing home Oscar gold. All right, and the final piece, I don't know if it was a snub or not, but everyone was expecting and even hoping that Queen Angela Bassett would take home her Oscar for her role as the Queen Ramonda, and she did not. And it was the best her role in everything, everywhere, all at once. And so, people. Well, let me just say, hey, Keenan, let's throw up the picture. Do we got a picture of Angela Bassett when she was when Jamie Lee Curtis was name was called? We got a picture of video. I just want to show people. She was not happy, folks. Take a look at this. This is not the face of happiness, folks. Everyone else was clapping and cheering, and Angela Bassett had to take that gut punch right there. And this was what made the news today, that she did not even clap for Jamie Lee Curtis, that she had to take one on the chin for that snub. Even though many people thought she was going to win, it was this face that has gotten people talking. And not only did this happen, that face, but then Jonathan Majors and Michael B. Jordan of Creed 3 decided to take a few moments out of their presentation for the best cinematography to say this. Take a look.
Hey, Auntie, we love you. Mm-hmm. Hey, Auntie, we love you. Mm-hmm.
That was a little interesting nod. That was a little interesting nod on the whole situation. Here's the thing, very quickly, folks, as we wrap up today's show. Angela Bassett, phenomenal actress. Jamie Lee Curtis never got an an Oscar for all of the years of work she's put in. She's another great actress. They both, Jamie Lee Curtis, this will be her first Oscar at the age of 68. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I hope that people don't make Jamie Lee Curtis feel bad about everything just for her win because Angela Bassett didn't win. Unfortunately, in the Oscar and awards world, this is how it goes. Someone wins and someone loses. And we only hope and pray, and we know that Angela Bassett is going to continue to put out quality work. Jamie Lee Curtis is going to continue to put out quality work. And that is unfortunately the hit that you get when you are an actor, when you put up your work to be scrutinized, when you put up your work to be judged, that you won't sometimes walk away with the big goal. But I just hope and pray that we don't make Jamie Lee Curtis or any actor feel less than because they won because we were expecting someone else. At the end of the day, it is art. It is subjective. We still loved it. And they both deserve the great work, the great accolades that they have. And so, I know it's hard for Angela Bassett, but Sister Angela, trust and believe, your work has been Oscar gold for so many years. You don't need a statue to verify it, to validate it. Just know that you got love from the culture for the great work that you do. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. I thank each and every one of you. I want to thank my dynamic team, King Keenan, Joe, my control room. I want to thank all my very special voices, Jason Nichols, Dr. Jason Nichols, and of course, Dr. Bridget Williams Cole, Dr. Bridget Cole Williams. And certainly, I want to thank you, my crew, for tuning in. Make sure you continue to support us here on the Black Star Network by going to blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app and, of course, support us financially and just sharing the content. And, of course, follow us on all social media platforms at Black Star Network. You can also follow me at the Farajii Muhammad. You can find me at The Real Farajii on Instagram, Farajii on Twitter, and I'd love to connect with you. Stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Talk to you soon. Peace.